you, Jake, and
Hi, everybody. Actually, can you allow me to present to share my screen here for the host?
I can help you share from my end if that's okay. I think I can. Okay, I can share as well. Oh.
That's okay. I think I got it. They just had to give me permission.
Okay.
Great. So welcome, everybody. As Gift said, we're going to introduce you to DFS Lab, but more importantly, the bootcamp and what to expect from the event coming up. And Anka from Stellar is also going to say a few things about how bootcamp fits into their the community fund, and also a little bit about what to expect from their side. So here's our agenda. We'll give you kind of a quick overview of SDF and the fund. That'll be Anka, and then I'll give you a bit more about the bootcamp. So just to kind of quickly give you an introduction to who we are at DFS Lab. We're an early stage investor in the African tech scene. We invest very early, often at pre-seed, in startups that are digitizing the African economy. So we invest in a lot of marketplaces, e-commerce, B2B e-commerce, social commerce, and everything along kind of the value chain of commerce in Africa. And we have kind of we're a very research-driven, thesis-based investor, and our belief is that while a lot of attention is being paid to fintech and some of the other areas that investors are excited about, we think the real prize is actually using some of those tools to digitize the economy, root and branch, and go from kind of cash-based and offline to digital-based and online. So you can tell, because of that belief, you can probably understand why we're very aligned with Stellar, because I think they have kind of a similar belief around digitizing the economy and making finance seamless and online and all that. So and we're as an investor, we're very hands-on. We don't call ourselves an accelerator program because we don't do batches with kind of a fixed curriculum. We actually focus on the individual needs of each company, but we're very, very hands-on. We spend we have a few folks dedicated full-time basically to supporting our portfolio companies, and we're basically there to help them usually go from the early pre-seed phase to their first seed round. That's where we generally tend to intervene. And we can't say too much about it yet, but there's more coming in the partnership area between us and Stellar around how we can help support more companies with more funding and things like that. So I can't say too much about it yet, but should be some exciting stuff coming up in the future. So that's us. We have a team in Nairobi. That's Gift, and also Joseph, who's there as well. But we also have people in Kenya and South Africa. I'm in Paris. Stephen and the other partners in San Francisco, and we bring a whole host of different skills. I won't go into everything, but I think that gives you a little bit of an intro to who we are as an organization. Anka, do you want to take over for a sec and give us a little bit more background on Stellar and the community fund?
Sure thing. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so for everyone who doesn't know me and is new on this call, my name is Anke, and I'm a program manager at the Stellar Development Foundation, or SDF for short, where we're going to say a lot of abbreviations today, SDF, SCF, so just preparing you for that. And so SDF is a nonprofit organization with a mission to create equitable access to the global financial system. And as a nonprofit, we shepherd the development and growth of Stellar, which is a decentralized open source layer 1 blockchain network that connects the world's financial infrastructure. So Stellar is really a back end, so to speak, to power apps and services where anyone can issue, store, transfer, and trade all sorts of assets. Stellar also has built-in logic for creating accounts and assets, signing transactions and tracking balances. Overall, Stellar is really purposely designed to streamline financial services and really unlock the world's economic potential by making money more fluid, markets more open, and people more empowered. So there is like Stellar is an open source, which means that anyone can build whatever they desire on the network with no application or permission needed. And speaking of building on Stellar, I lead a program called the Stellar Community Fund, or SCF for short, the second abbreviation, which is an open application grant program hosted by us that serves as the springboard for many businesses and developers building on Stellar to turn their concepts into tangible products and services based on input from the Stellar community. It's quite an old fund, like we're together with our predecessor. It's been around since about like 2016 and has distributed almost 200 million XLM, which is Stellar's native currency, to hundreds of Stellar-based projects based on community input. So that's pretty exciting. You know, what's different? I know that there are many grants out there for blockchain. So what makes us different? 3 reasons. So at SCF, all kinds of use cases and project scope sizes are welcome, where other grants may primarily focus on innovation on traditional like services. SCF also funds like DeFi, NFTs, community education, and developer tool projects. Also, the community is actively involved in guiding and supporting the projects, as well as voting for the projects they want to see earn a grant. Fun fact, SCF grants have no strings attached. So this means that grant recipients decide how to spend their grant and don't need to pay anything back. So pretty sweet, I would say. So SCF really operates biannually in the form of rounds, and right now the SCF is welcoming submissions for its 11th iteration. It's been 11 rounds already, with a total XLM pool of 8 million. So any developer, team, or company building on Stellar can submit to the SCF and request funding up to about like $200,000 worth of XLM, which depends on their project scope. Aside from funding, participating in SCF allows you to gather useful feedback from the community, gain traction in the ecosystem, and also opens up unique opportunities for growth. So yeah, and for the first time ever, let's go to the next slide, Jake.
Yep.
Yeah. For the first time ever, submissions that get selected to participate in the SCF and are eligible to participate in the bootcamp can now participate in can now participate in a virtual startup bootcamp from November 1 to 4 that will really like kickstart their journey on Stellar. Or even if you're already in the Stellar ecosystem, like help with a particular problem that you haven't been able to solve before with the help of experts and facilitators from both SCF, DFS Lab, and the community. Over the course of a few days, participants will work with these facilitators to find a problem, storyboard a solution, and develop a rapid prototype before getting feedback from the Stellar Community Fund, from the Stellar community. But Jake will tell you much more about that. Just so you know, before, if you want to get considered for participation, submit your Stellar-based project to the SCF before September 25th. And this is in a little over a week, so it's really coming up. So that is the deadline before September 25th. Also, I saw some questions in the Q&A section here on the Zoom. So definitely add your questions there, and we'll have a little Q&A session like right after, I think like at the end of the session, right? That's all from me. And yeah, Jake, take it away.
Thank you, Anka. Yeah, that was great. So yeah, I'm going to give you kind of an overview of what to expect if you come to this event, and we're really excited about it. We've done a couple of these with Stellar already in the past, and they're super fun for us because we get to see new companies who are often new to Stellar. They're trying to create some kind of an innovation or crack some difficult challenge in the financial services space. And it's a very kind of intense interaction where we really get to go deep in what they're trying to build, what their challenges are, you know, et cetera. We get to meet their team and all that kind of thing. And so we really like them. And I think the Stellar team does too, for the same reasons. You know, you just really get to dive in. And for us, it's also great that we get to be hands-on with each company. So we're not just kind of like lecturing about, you know, the future of fintech and all that kind of stuff when you go to a normal conference. The boot camp is really you and your team coming and doing work in a really intensive but structured way with help from a whole bunch of different people, us, experts, Stellar, et cetera. So it's definitely not something you want to think about like a typical conference or something like that. It's really you working on your product, which is you know, which is what you should be doing if you're running a startup. So I'm going to start with kind of just high level, you know, almost like the philosophy of a design sprint, right? So some of you probably done design sprints. You know, we didn't invent them, and we won't be the last to use them. But we have kind of our own version of a design sprint that we do. And the real idea is that you test and prototype a solution in just 5 days. And you start with, you know, a problem. You define, you know, the challenge that you're trying to overcome. And then we have kind of a step-by-step process once you've defined that problem to go from there to a realistic prototype that you can put in front of users and get their reaction. And that's the critical thing about a sprint, a design sprint, is you're trying to avoid building an actual product, which sounds weird, right? Like why are we teaching you, or why are we encouraging you to avoid building product? Everyone else is telling you, yeah, build product, that's the most important thing. But what's important is actually to build product that people want. And this approach of a design sprint is a way to fast forward into the future and say, okay, how are people reacting to this product before we've actually built it? So we don't have to waste the time of building it if they don't react in the way we hope. And it's a great methodology. There's a few links here, you can read more about it. I encourage you to do that. But that's the fundamental philosophy and what we're trying to accomplish with this. And you'll be surprised how realistic a prototype you can build. So here's the process. Now, some of you have done you know, sprints based on the sprint book, which we had the link to on the last slide, or some of the other methodologies. This will look a little bit different, but it's okay. You know, a lot of the same steps are there, and the same fundamental outcome is there. So because we kind of have limited time, and we're assuming that there's going to be a large number of participants, we're going to try and have each participant team define the problem they're trying to solve before you show up. So that'll be important to know, is that, you know, spend a little bit of time before we start on day one, actually figuring out and defining the problem. We're going to send you some exercises to do to make sure that you've actually done that, because it's actually kind of a common problem we see with product designers and founders, where they'll say, oh, I know what the problem is, but they actually haven't thought it through in enough detail to really have a high resolution version of the problem. So that's what we're going to ask you to do before the event starts. Day one will then be to say, okay, let's take the problem that we have, map out what the sort of, you know, original customer journey is, and think through where in that customer journey we might want the sort of current or standard, you know, industry standard customer journey. And then where in that customer journey or that sort of experience do we want to intervene with the prototype that we're creating today, right? So that's day one, is really mapping out the problem in a high level detail and figuring out where we want to intervene. Day two, and I'm going to show you some examples of each of these in the next few slides. So basically, you'll come up with a map, and I'll show you the map in a second, right? Day two, you're going to focus on which solutions you want to use in your intervention, and you're going to generate actually a whole bunch of solution ideas. You know, so you kind of widen the funnel of ideas before you then narrow down on which particular one you think is the best. And that process of widening and creating new ideas, we have a whole bunch of well, not a whole bunch, but we have a few steps and exercises to do to make sure that you really stimulate your creativity and bring in, you know, the best ideas from the team, and make sure that you don't jump on the first idea that comes to mind, but you actually explore really deeply this set of ideas space in your head, that sort of the set of the possible, if you will. And then we have a similar set of exercises where, okay, now all the team has kind of put all their ideas out there. Now we're going to narrow down using some anonymous voting and some ways of giving feedback that try to avoid biasing the solution based on who's the most convincing or who the feedback comes from. Often, people think that, because the CEO said, oh, I like this one, then that's one we should do. And at the end of the day, the CEO probably has to make the decision. But we do think that it's better to make sure that everyone's kind of perspective and thought process is kind of treated equally in the initial part, so that you kind of narrow down the designs based on best thinking and not on who's the most senior or the most convincing. Some people just have a great way of putting it, but that may not be the best idea. So day 2 is really going to be about focusing down on, okay, what's the sort of product approach and solution that we want to create. The next step after that, and that's kind of end of day 2 going into day 3, is first you're going to storyboard your prototype at a pretty high level of detail. Now, people always want to resist this. They found their idea on day 2. They want to jump right in and build it, but we really push back on that. It's not a good idea. And the reason it's not is because basically when you jump in and try to build something, you think you know what you're building because you've got this idea in your head, but that idea doesn't have enough detail to actually be a coherent feature on your product. And so what happens is you start building, you build, part A and part C and part F, and then you realize you got to fill in the other stuff. And as you start to fill in the other stuff that you weren't thinking about, when you kick the thing off, you realize that I've got to redo part A because it doesn't fit together better, it doesn't fit together well, or it doesn't make sense now that I've thought through part B. And you start creating kind of a nonlinear problem to solve, where now everything is interrelated and you have to change this and I have to change this, and slows you way down. And you end up having to sometimes just completely restart and do the whole thing from the beginning, right? Most of you probably experienced that at some point when you're dealing with a complex system like a product, right? So what we encourage people to do is spend the time. It only takes maybe 2 hours to really create a detailed storyboard that says, okay, at each step, here's what we're going to do, right? There's going to be a button. That button's going to take you here. You're going to do something. You're going to put in some data. Whatever you're going to do, right? All that stuff will be thought out, including pretty high level of detail on content, if there is any. So if there's wording, if there's text, if there's images, you can say, okay, we need an image here. We need some wording here. Then you go into the prototyping phase. You've got a really detailed map, that says, hey, you're going to do, it's just like a recipe that you follow, and you are going to be so much faster in building your prototype if you've got that recipe laid out, or that storyboard. So then in the prototyping phase, that'll be day 3, and it'll actually kind of go beyond day 3 a little bit. You'll have a bit of extra time in day 4 as well, where you'll be prototyping. You will have support from us, but in particular, you have support from the Stellar team. There'll be some engineer folks who know the APIs and all the ins and outs of all the different Stellar technology, so that you won't get hung up trying to read through documentation and things like that. I mean, their documentation is actually quite good, of course, but in any case, there'll be folks who can help you, live in person as well. And there's going to be the whole community, and I'm going to get into that in a second. This is just kind of the sprint aspect. There's going to be kind of a whole extra layer around all this, which is the community part of it. So once you're done with your prototype, you're going to get in. You're going to then test it with users, and that's actually something new we're doing this time. If any of you were at the previous bootcamp, we didn't do that, but it's supposed to be an integral part of the sprint. It's actually the most important part. In fact, it's really why you do a design sprint in the first place. which is to find out what people think. And again, we're going to have kind of an integrated process where people from the community can be your user and give you feedback on how the experience goes when they use your product or test the feature or what have you. And so we're going to do some workshops on how to do that testing in a way that doesn't bias your users. It's very easy to bias someone who's testing a product or a feature, and they're kind of looking at you to see, like, how do you feel when they do X or Y? They don't want to hurt your feelings. If it's clear that you're the one who built this thing, they don't want to say it's terrible or that they don't like it, or they give you a bunch of really positive feedback, but it's not, it's not real. It's not their gut. It's not their real gut reaction. So, and there's a lot of other ways you can bias, by the way you present it, by the way you talk about it, by the way, the situation you put the person in. So we've got, we got a workshop plan where we're going to give you some tools so that you know how to do a user test session with a prototype, and how to collect the feedback, and how to organize that feedback into sort of a useful output. So, so that's the basic sort of step-by-step process of the sprint itself. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. It's very kind of both draining and energizing because it's pretty intense. There's a lot of steps, and you using your brain a lot, and you kind of got to dump out all your creativity and make decisions and then build stuff. It's pretty cool. And what we see is that often within each company, not only does it help, really rapidly go from some particular problem you're having with your user base or your user experience or whatever it is where you're trying to improve. Or if you're fundamentally new, maybe you're just trying to build a very, very, very basic first version of the product if you don't have one yet. It really, it definitely helps do that really quickly and in a way that, like I said, is based on user feedback, and so much more validated and much more likely to result in the final product that you build, being useful and liked by your users. But it's often also a way, because you're so focused and intensively working on your product, and you're doing it in the context of seeing a lot of other teams do their products, think through their challenges and solutions, etc. You're interacting with a lot of people who you don't interact with on a daily basis, but who are experts in this area. Our mentors and facilitators, us, the Stellar team, the community members. You're going to have some really, I think most of the time we see teams having these really interesting kind of revelations about their strategy, their product, their pathway to market, their distribution, all those other things that don't necessarily fit directly into the storyboard that, or the product that you're prototyping, but that fit in around it. So it's a really valuable process, I think. And we see a lot of companies getting a lot of value out of it. I wanted to just kind of quickly give some examples just to illustrate what I was talking about. So remember, I talked about first day, you draw out the pathway, the user pathway, and then you figure out where you want to focus and intervene. So this was one from a customer who was doing a cash in, cash out at a mobile money agent network in Kenya. And you can see kind of all the different process steps that are going on. They're entering their number, they're talking to the agent, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I won't go through everything. And then the team wanted to focus on these two areas that are circled in green. So that was sort of the end of their first day, basically, of sprint. They came up, this is what they come up with. And there's other steps and other things they created. This was kind of the main final output. And it basically guides the creation of their solutions the following days to say, okay, we know the process that where we fit in, and we know what we want to change. That's essentially what you come out of day one with. And what we're going to do, we're still kind of fine tuning how we're going to have the interactions with the community members and things like that. But we are going to find a way that you can sort of present and show this to the community, probably via Discord, and either get feedback. People may vote on which kind of problem problem diagram and problem choice that they like the best, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to have some kind of like really cool ways where you can interact with the Stellar community and really get, even more feedback and more ideas and more sort of expert help with what you're doing. So this is the output of day 2, or it's one example anyway. And what you can see here is we got this three pages. I think each one is supposed to be looks like an app screen on a phone maybe. And you're just kind of going through looks like a sign up process, right? There's a sign up button on the first page, and then there's looks like there's some marketing lingo on the second page. So it's kind of an onboarding process, right? The next one is maybe a text message based interface. So anyway, I don't know exactly what this storyboard was supposed to be, but it was supposed to be an onboarding process for a savings app. And you can also see how there's these blue and pink dots. You're probably like, why are those all over the place? So that's part of one of the steps in the process is people on the team and also other people outside of the team can vote on which things they like best and which things they like, that they think should go into the final version of the prototype. And it's non-binding, it's kind of like thumbs up on Facebook or claps on Medium. It's just kind of like people express their opinion. And that gives you kind of this heat map of like, oh boy, there's a bunch of dots over here on the, in some part, we should probably keep that. And there's no dots on this other part. People didn't seem to care about that part. So maybe we can cut it out or something like that. And eventually you'll have a couple of these because each, there'll be more than one of these storyboards initially. As remember I said, we're going to first start with a bunch of ideas and then narrow it down. Eventually the decider on the team will make a choice, and they may choose one storyboard or one sort of three-page thing, or they might reconfigure and mix and match. You can do whatever you want, but the idea is to use this heat map and the feedback that you've got from the team to kind of choose, okay, we're going to do this particular idea for an onboarding or for a transaction process or whatever you're doing. So that's the first day. And again, community is going to get involved here too. Same as before. We're still kind of fine tuning how exactly that's going to work, but you're going to be able to kind of show and get feedback on some of this stuff. And we're going to have, I think, some prizes and voting on like, best ideas and things like that. So day 3, I believe, will produce this storyboard. So this is an example of storyboard I was talking about. It's not super pretty, you can see, but it gets the job done. So essentially, these are supposed to be a series of app screens. You can see the wireframes. And in a few cases, they just photographed hand-drawn diagrams and put them straight in there. That's totally acceptable and cool. Then they also put, you can see kind of the step-by-step with the yellow sticky notes where each one kind of says, what's happening at each step. And you get a little bit of the kind of the menu options and things like that. And basically it's kind of like a transaction flow on some level. And so this is, doesn't have to be that, that you don't have tons and tons of detail as long as you know what's happening on each page and all the pages that you have to build and how they kind of interconnect to each other. That's what you need to get done. And once you have that, then it's really easy. Then you just, then you're just heads down, you're building. The other thing we usually do is wire diagram for the transaction process that's happening on the back end. And that's, where you're going to be interfacing with the different parts of the Stellar system and in your own, your own system as well, if you have one. And so this usually helps kind of clarify both the information and money flow if it's a financial transaction of some kind that's happening on the back end. Not everyone needs to do one of these, but most people do. It's usually a valuable exercise. It doesn't take very long. But again, same idea. It's basically you're trying to just map everything out so that when you go into the building mode, you're not drawing the blueprint diagram as you build at the same time, right? You have the blueprint, then you build. Now, I mentioned and alluded to some of this stuff earlier, but one of the things that's really cool about this bootcamp is, and that we're really excited about anyway, is we're introducing a bunch of new features and things we haven't done before. And part of the idea was, when Stellar came to us and said, hey, we've done smaller boot camps before, where we have a lot of one-on-one stuff, but we really want to make it so that each company has a chance, so that we can bring in a lot more companies and make it more available to the entire sort of community fund participants and folks who are applying. And we want to make it so that it interacts, so that all of them get to interact, and the process is interactive with the entire community, which is super cool. It was a little bit daunting, I have to say. Anka was like, "Hey guys, go do that," and we were like, "Man, that's gonna be complicated." But actually, it turned out it was a great idea, and we're really excited that we did it, because now we've come up with a whole kind of a new system that we think will do those two things a lot better, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. So a few things to expect from this new approach. One is, as I've mentioned a couple of times, there's gonna be help from community members to test ideas, get feedback, get advice, etc. And the community members are gonna be kind of like activated and online and available, and kind of looking in, on what's happening. We're like I said, the exact mechanisms for that are still being developed. But one thing we're trying to do is pair each team with a community member that has relevant expertise and a desire to kind of maybe some, passion for the area that they're building on, and sort of pair you, so you get an extra person on your team to kind of give new ideas and help move the process along, and be just like on a sounding board and things like that. So that should be pretty cool. You get to meet someone new from the community. Another goal of this, and like I said, you'll be showing the outputs of your process as we go along to the community and getting feedback. But you also, of course, being at the end, kind of showing your final product, is a great way to expose what you're doing to the broader community. Remember, the SCF awards are a choice by the community itself, not just the Stellar team. And so you really, you want to expose people to it, make sure they know what you're doing, and that'll help a lot when it comes time for the voting on, potentially on your project. We've created a bunch of self-directed modules and videos for each step of the sprint process. So normally in the past, basically I would go up and explain everything, and then the sprint participants would do it, and with a facilitator. Now we're trying to make it so you don't need to have a facilitator, and you don't need to have me talking to you. Although we will have some points where, myself or somebody from Stellar will jump in and just kind of talk to the whole group. But we're trying to make it a lot more self-directed. So some teams will probably be able to go a little bit faster. Some may want to take more time in a particular area. So make it a lot better for sprint participants. You won't be forced to move along at the same speed as everybody else. We're also going to have kind of some fun gamification, quote unquote, where, as the community sees what people are doing, we're going to kind of create some ways for them to react and promote certain ideas or teams, products. We want it to be positive and inclusive, not, like there's no downvoting, there's only upvoting. But, and there'll be a lot of ways in which to get recognized, not just like, does everyone like this or not, but like, the most improved, or the kind of the coolest ideas in different kind of categories and all that kind of stuff. And Stellar has been generous enough to give a small amount of money for cash prizes. So some of the winners in different categories are going to take a little bit of cash home in your pocket. It's not it's not tons, it's not retirement money, but just a small amount to kind of like get people's blood going a little bit, make sure everyone's engaged and trying to put your best foot forward. We're also going to have global time zone coverage. So basically, you can do this sprint from anywhere in the world, and we will have facilitators available, at least one facilitator and hopefully one technical person available at all times, basically, which should be exciting. And it'll allow us to have companies from all over, or entrants from all over the world who participate. And there'll be a lot more participants. Last time, I think we had 9, and this time, I don't know how many we're gonna have, but it's looking like 30, 40, maybe even 50. So yeah, it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be cool. There's gonna be a lot of different ideas and products and cool new technologies. So we're definitely looking forward to it. So after all that, this slide just kind of gives you the very basic boiled down version of what to expect. You come in with an idea and a problem you want to solve, and you leave with a validated prototype product and maybe some cash. So it's a really valuable experience. And if you've ever done a sprint, you'll know what I mean, because almost everybody who goes through them is like, oh, I want to do another one right away. And if nothing else, you'll learn the methodology, and you'll take it home with you, and you can do it again. So Gift, I'm gonna hand it back to you. Thanks everybody. I don't know, do you guys want to do questions, or were there questions maybe that I should answer? I haven't been.
So yeah, there are actually a bunch of questions on the Q&A chat, but let's give room for Emmanuel.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Emmanuel and Marvelous to share their experience. As I mentioned earlier, Emmanuel was a past, participant at one of the boot camps we had, and also one of the winners. Same with the Crop to Cash team. So they will pretty much be sharing what their experience was like, as well as maybe also give us a bit of what they've been up to since the boot camp. So yeah, over to you, Emmanuel.
Should I stop sharing? Are you guys going to go on video so people can see you live, or? Sorry, Gift, we lost you. Should I stop sharing?
Yes, you can stop sharing. Yeah.
Over to you guys.
Okay, I can go now.
Yes, you can.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Gifts. Thanks so much, Jake. I felt like we're at bootcamp again while he was giving the presentation. A lot of nostalgia, like just how many months. By the way, my name is Everest Emmanuel. I'm the CEO and the co-founder of Link. We are building Web3 cross-border payments infrastructure for Africa. We were opportuned to be part of the DFS Lab Startup Bootcamp. Probably at the beginning of the year, around April. Was really fun experience for us. I told, when I spoke to Anke last, I was like, that was the highlight of the year for us. Really got the ball rolling towards us building product, towards really even us going to market. I think for my team and I think one of the things we would really always remember were really stepping back, really taking a breath of the whole experience, right? To really understand, because when we came into the bootcamp, we had built just a piece of stuff around on the Stellar blockchain. So we're quite confident. We're like, okay, you know what? We can, skip the chase and go straight to day 3 or day 4, day 5 till the MOD. But we had an awesome facilitator that was really able to walk us through day by day from the sprints. We got to ask ourselves the toughest questions from the sprints to the crazy 8. I think crazy 8s, we'll never forget crazy 8. And it really made us understand what we are building and who we are building for. So even till today, one of the things that we were able to take out from the bootcamp really informs our decision, even around product deployment, even around understanding UI, UX, and really trying to understand, okay, yeah, if you have a button there, would that be a UX problem? Or how long is your solution compared to maybe an existing solution? So you're really thinking about things, even down to marketing. So for us, it was a really fun experience, a great one. We got to learn a lot. And I think it was a week, probably a week. I and my team really, said, okay, this week we're really going to put our minds in. I think after the first day, and we really saw how it was, but I think it lasted from 12 p.m. our time to 5 p.m. So it can be a bit exhausting, but trust me, after the full week, we're able to absorb a lot out of it, learn, like, we felt like we even know anything. And then from there, it really was a springboard to everything we're able to even do today. In fact, after that, just probably a month or 2 months later, we are part of the Stellar Community Fund, which is, by the way, like, doing something together with the bootcamp, really awesome stuff. And we're winners of that too as well. So so my experiences throughout the bootcamp, I would say, like I said, the bootcamp was a highlight for us. And really was that a major springboard to most of the things we're able to do today. We've had awesome partnerships since after the bootcamp with companies in the financial space and out of financial space, even in the crypto space, in and out of Africa, to really help us reach our mission. Like Stellar was built for cross-border payments. Stellar was built for payments. And when you have Stellar helping you really solve those difficult problems in payments in Africa, and then you have the bootcamp really shaping that your idea to really make you understand the things you should really do, you're in the right place. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. That was really, really, great, a great experience rundown. I'm sure that a lot of, other to-be participants would get, a really good insight on what to expect. Thank you so much for also taking the time to, come share your experience. So yeah, over to you, Marvelous.
Okay. Good day, everybody. I'm Marvelous Akinola, a Crop to Cash member and a participant of the Stellar Bootcamp around April. In Crop to Cash, seizing prospective opportunities at the early stage and seeing through them is one important thing we do not joke with. The knowledge of having to integrate Stellar into our existing platform was mind-blowing, and a lot of deep thought needed to be put in place. First, to seize the opportunity that comes with it and to see how we can mitigate the challenges. Of integration into our existing platform, and also to use the use case challenges considering our major targets being mostly uneducated. The experience generally was intriguing and challenging at the same time, given that there are a lot to achieve and in a little period of time. But I would say every time spent was worth it. It was an exercise that fostered teamwork as it presented an avenue for us to learn and as well as to network with other people. And one thing I admire about the whole bootcamp thing is the watchword that says, get started, not perfect. And trust me, during the process of starting, your imperfections will be made perfect. Another thing I particularly enjoyed was the structure of the bootcamp, especially when with the way we had to go from conceptualization of a solution to the implementation of what is said of the said solution. And it will be a lie if I say we were not faced with a bit of challenges at the very inception of the whole project. But with the help of our personal instructor, Gifts, and the moderator of the program, Anke, we were able to get answers to every of our questions. Although it is expected that every participating member of the team should be in a common room so as to share ideas and be readily available for discussion. It is also noteworthy to mention that there was convenience. The convenience experienced while participating in bootcamp was very great. And my take home after the whole bootcamp is that everybody's idea is very significant. It doesn't matter how important we may feel our ideas are, it will cost us nothing to actually share it with others. Who knows, it might be the spark that's needed to light up other people's idea. And I cannot but mention how lenient and patient and also optimistic the project anchors at DLS are towards every individual team. So I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity, and I wish every new aspirant the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marvelous. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. I see that some questions have already been answered on the Q&A already. So if you perhaps might have dropped your question, you can go back to the Q&A section and just read the answers. I see Anke went off, like she went off, to to keep the keyboard running by answering your questions. So yeah, just feel free to go back there to check. I think we're at this stage where we pretty much just have the floor open for closing remarks. And since, a bunch of the questions has already been answered on the Q&A chat. So yeah, over to you, Jake and Anka.
Yeah, I actually, thank you, Jake, for answering. I think there's a common, as I was reading through everything, I think there's a common thread. It's like, especially like for existing, or like, you know, that because like SCF, right, it's not only for new projects that are completely new to Stellar, but it's also for those who are already a bit further ahead, or even a bit further ahead, and are like, you know, submitting a new product on Stellar, for example, that they're thinking about. So Jake, like kind of like, is like, how would the approach be different for these different types of can they also still like get value? Can people that are existing also still get value out of the bootcamp?
Yeah, totally. And actually, the bootcamp and the design sprint methodology works across any level of organization. We've done it with unicorns who have massive product suites that are already, you know, processing billions of dollars per year, and they still, you know, they have product challenges as well. They can define a problem that they want to solve. They have a, you know, somewhere in their product flow, something's not working the way they want it to work. They want to, you know, ideate, test some new things, build a prototype of that new feature. The cool thing for companies that already have some version of a product built is often you can use either screenshots, or if you've already done some prototyping, you can modify those prototypes. So you get really realistic prototypes sometimes, you know, embedded in stuff that already exists within your product, and then just test something that's new relative to what you already built. So yeah, definitely, doesn't matter what stage you're at. This is definitely useful still, even if you're further on.
Yeah, I would agree. It's like, it's just the methodology. It's not just like, oh, it's not just kickstarting your product on Stellar, because obviously like you cannot just like build a whole product in a week, but it's really like singling out this like most pressing problem that you choose to solve in those few weeks, and then you get facilitators like that have experience, you get community like ecosystem partners that might be able to help you, and you can get like developers on Stellar helping with answering any type of like challenges technically that you encounter. So yeah, like another like thing that I noticed here is that people are like, oh, are you like building a proof of concept or like an MVP after the like bootcamp? So Jake, like what do you generally see bootcamp participants walk away with after participating in the bootcamp?
Well, they're usually building a prototype, and with the proof of concept on the back end. So it's like usually kind of a design, you know, some sort of design front end, and that creates a user experience. And that can be done in all kinds of different medium, you know, Figma, we use PowerPoint, anything, you know, really just depends what you're comfortable with. Or and then usually it's got a proof of concept sort of technical integration on the back end, so that you can actually make the machinery that needs to work behind the scenes kind of just at least do the basics, right? It's not performance ready and that kind of stuff, but you're just, yeah, proof of concept on the back end side. So it's a combination of those two things. And the idea is that really helps you move, you know, in only 3 days, you've been able to test both the validity with the customer facing, you know, sort of prototype, design experience prototype, and then also test the technical validity. So it's really, that's the idea, is that it's very accelerated way to be able to make a decision as to whether that's the way you want to go, or maybe didn't work out how you thought, and you avoid having to build a whole, you know, minimum viable product before knowing that it's not going to work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to let me see, answer everything. I think we answered most of those things. Let me see how many. Oh yeah, so for the amount of projects we are aiming about, like to see if we can get about 30 to 40 for the bootcamp, depending on how many submissions we get. We just have to see. Usually like for an entire like SCF round, we're trying to get around 50, because that's usually the maximum amount someone can review like at all. It's already a lot, trust me. But for like, and that will be like, you know, until the final October 30 deadline, but we're expecting to have most of our submissions before the bootcamp, because the bootcamp can really elevate your presence in the Stellar Community Fund round. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. If anyone has any last minute questions, put them into the Q&A now. Maybe we'll be able to answer them, but Jake, I'm gonna give the floor to you.
Well, We don't, not much else to cover. There's a few things here on the screen you can see, some next step stuff. There's some links, and I think we're going to share this PowerPoint if I'm not mistaken. So, but you know, definitely go read more about the Stellar Community Fund. Obviously, if you're applying, you should read about it. But it's a really cool concept that Stellar has come up with, the whole community fund idea. So go take a look and learn more. Complete your submission before September 25th to be considered for the bootcamp, and plan to come and give it all if you're selected to participate. So yeah, that's hopefully giving you all good sense of what to expect and what are the motivations and what you would get out of it and why to go. And yeah, I hope to see you all there.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Emmanuel and Marvelous too. And thank you, DFS Lab team, for participating.
Thank you, Anka, for bringing us here. Looking forward to the